So this is MEZA GRANDDUCHESS RASMASKONEN on the 19th of May 2013 at 4:09 p.m. Continuing on my Sunday broadcast, Pendants of Penance. And so, darling, we wear pendants and we wear things, darling, that burden us, that burden our lives, that burden our mentality, that burdens our intelligence, that burden our wisdom and knowledge and our capacity to make judgment. I say pendants to penance, because once you get rid of them, darling, you face the sum total of who you are and what you must change in order to liberate yourself to a happier, more prosperous you. And if that doesn't take place, then, and you're happy with who you are, then so be it. But what kind of lives can be lived when knowledge is not practiced where it should be? When samaritization is for the propensity of celebritydom and for glamour. The good old-fashioned days of just doing things because you can afford to, or you have the time to. I say the innocence, we assault the innocence. I speak about that because when you practice hypocrisy, your innocence is lost, and the desperation sometime of the soul of each man is to recapture his innocence, the sum total of who he is, to liberate that and to enjoy that happiness and peace with his family and friends. And if that innocence is further burdened and entrapped by hypocrisy and more lies because of our duty to work, our duty to be successful, our duty to whatever it is, and we forget our duty to the divine, whatever your divine is and whatever you practice, then you become more burdened, you become more cumbersome. So the innocent, darling, the innocent, my dear friends, is within you. You are innocent. Yes, you have done a horrendous crime or a horrendous treatment of a co-worker, a friend, a brother, or a sister. So much so you're so comfortable with it because society does not absolve you or society does not imprison you because of it, et al. For whatever reason there may be, because you have status, money, power, or social mores, what they deem they are. But darling, you destroy the innocence. Your purpose become blighted and blinded, and sometimes you're enraptured and encaptured by your everyday duties. So when disaster happens, you do not understand the reparations or the bare necessity of the innocence. You pretend because of status, because you can speak, because you can identify, or because you belong to the culture. But you're more far away than you ever have been. And so here it was you robbed of your innocence and your ability to judge, because you can no longer see the things that you have hidden within yourself. Then you are racked with fear, the fear and the burden of releasing that fear, the fear of getting to know yourself. And if you release yourself from those fears, you become a better leader, a more prosperous person, and maybe more happier. And what about your victims and their fears? Fear of being locked up, fear of being stigmatized, fear of losing their job, and fear you help them to lose their families. You assaulted them, you victimized them, you did whatever it is to ostracize them from your community. You told them that you do not want them on your church property because you don't. That's not the kind of people you want. But what kind of people does the divine want, that God uses and wants? None of us really knows. We have become content and happy because of our social status. in essence, is to be paid for. We can no longer walk along certain church corridors. God is not free to all of us, to some of us. And that status that we have come to agree upon and to live by, forgetting the struggles of the past, the struggle of being handicapped, the struggle of being poor, the struggle of being black, the struggle of being Asian, the struggle of being German, or whatever the struggle is, Jamaican and Rastafarian. And even some Rastafarians now, they forgot what Bob Marley has done. They can no longer identify with the status quo, with a man who stands up or somebody else that stands up and say, I was victimized by this organization, because most Rastafarians embrace the status quo now. So they no longer understand what anybody else endure or have to live by, and in so become detached. And that's why, darling, when somebody else raise the flag or raise the verbiage to be included for justice, to be treated fairly, we must consider closely their ideas, their predicament, and the solution to those predicament, so that, darling, we do not become clustered, closed, and victimized by the fear of not producing justice, because that is a most dangerous asset, a most dangerous tool that's further isolate us internationally from understanding and being better Samaritans, instead of being glorified, glamorized, and famed. Such are things in life. Glory, glamour, and fame, and jewelry, and money, it's good. But let us realize the causes for which we are standing for. Realize the innocence and the burden you carry, because you have blighted your own innocence. It can be regained. It can be recaptured. Simple solutions for complex problems. It is a pebble of a shepherd that slaughtered the magnitude of a country. David and Goliath. What did Goliath do? What did Goliath say about his own innocence? He built a massive, I use Goliath built a massive country with massive freedoms, and here was a little shepherd town that was being victimized. And who was going to stand up to Goliath? They were all in fear. This little shepherd town with this little shepherd boy and these little shepherd families, and all of them, with all that they knew, they lived in fear of Goliath. They never stood up for what they believed in. But when the divine intervened, here comes Goliath with his nuclear weapons and stood up. Everybody was cheering and laughing. And even some of the people from the shepherd town, they went and joined Goliath because they felt like they wanted to preserve their life. They did not trust their faith. They did not stand up on their realities. They did not stand up in their innocence. Instead, who should defend the shepherd town out of all these strong men from this shepherd town? Married men, stable in structure. What should they do? Nobody. But God, a little sheep boy that everybody relegated, had no aspiration but being a good shepherd, slayed the Goliath of a nation, the Goliath of probably a nuclear nation that we consider at this time, and it fell. It fell because of innocence and fell because of faith and strength. So therefore, Goliath pendants and the Philistines became their penance. And what did David achieve? Kingship. Kingship, a simple shepherd. Realize your innocence and work on them. This is me, the Grand Duchess RASMASKONEN. Have a good evening.